All right, my babies. 5 o'clock in the morning. Well, 4:30. I woke up at 6:30, or I woke up at 3:30, and here we are, having a conversation with you guys about what? About 1 second. All right. About chapter 7, business cases. Uh, Business cases for me are basically studies around what businesses did, how they succeeded, how they failed, and whatever the shit. So let's have this conversation. You can tell that it's super early in the morning because of how calm I am. And it's interesting because I think there are a lot less cars outside, so like the whole noise of the world is kind of like the whole world is quiet. So like, I don't have to speak with energy, I guess. But let's start with this. A business case provides a justification for a course of action based on the benefits to be realized by using the proposed solution, as compared to the cost, effort, and the other considerations to acquire and live with that solution. Under normal circumstances, you research, you study, you check, you double check. But a business case kind of like is something that fits within your kind of like context that has been done before. So instead of creating something new from scratch and hiring all the people and getting business analysts, what you could do, a business analyst is getting the business case right now, right? But ultimately what you could do is basically see what worked for somebody else and try to apply that and save yourself enough time and learn in that process, right? By applying that, you get to learn. And that's what they're telling us right now. Like, what's the purpose? Is instead of spending all that money to kind of figure something out, somebody else figured it out, just like check their case. And so, what's the description? A business case captures the rationale of undertaking a change. A business case is frequently presented in a formal document, but may also be presented through informal methods. Yeah, all right. The amount of time and resource. I remember I was in Liberia and I was having a conversation with somebody. If I'm not mistaken, he was talking about how Deloitte measures basically economic strength. And it changed the way I looked at sales in my restaurant, because economic strength was measured a lot more based on the people and their power to purchase, while I was measuring sales based on items that are sold. And so what I did is that allowed me to like shift my perspective to looking at my customers and how they are, and basically kind of like to build to structure my management approach in order to get customers who can pay more money, who can afford to pay more money, as a target instead of just basically customers, right? So instead of just randomly like accepting customers, like all were welcome, it's just like we targeted people that made more money and shit like that in our marketing campaigns or in our approach. Yeah. So basically, like the amount of time, the reason I say that is because, like, that's the informal method. Like, it was just a conversation. It's not like I read something somewhere or read a book, which was formal. So the amount of time and resources spent on the business case should be proportional to the size and importance of its value, naturally. Business case provides sufficient detail to inform and request approval without providing specific intricacies about the method or approach to the implementation. So the business case discusses the شو اسمه. Well, here they're saying is like, it provides sufficient detail and for the information and the request of approval without specific intricacies about the method and the approach of the implementation. You can't force somebody else's implementation on your own. That's where culture lives and that's where style lives, right? Like, just because you're good at sports doesn't mean you're good at basketball, right? Because just because you're good at football, it's a sport event. So like, you basically need the information, enough information, and then you apply it the way you would, and then you kind of like you're subjective and you can objectively like approach it. You're approaching it in a very objective way in order to subjectively get the experience you want. And it may also be the catalyst for one of many initiatives in order to implement the change. And a business case is used to define the need, determine the desired outcome, assess constraints, assumptions and risks, and recommend a solution. Okay, that makes sense. It's like, what do we want? Why do we want it? What are the things that kind of like stand in the way or kind of like limit us? And what's the solution? What are the elements? Assessing the need. The need is the driver for the business case. Like, what do we need to do? If we don't need to do nothing, we do nothing, right? But again, like a need is based on goals. So if your goal is to grow and you have nothing to do because everything's moving smoothly, then ultimately you have to find something new to do in order to sustain growth. But if your goal is to just survive, then you have to basically make sure and maintain and whatever. Oh, here, it is relevant business. It is the relevant business goal or objective that must be met. That's where the need is. Because the word need is a lot more like, I need this. It's like, why? Oh, because that's what I want, or that's where I am, or I will die if I don't eat or drink. Not sure I believe that anymore, by the way. Anyways, objectives are linked to a strategy and the strategies of the enterprise. The need assessment identifies the problem or the potential opportunity throughout the development of the business case. Different alternatives, right? Like the assessment, the needs assessment identifies the problem or a potential. Like you're looking at a goal and you're like, why am I not? Like I love this question. Like why am I not there yet? That clarity, that success is very powerful. So throughout the development of the business case, different alternatives to solve the problem or take advantage of the opportunity will be assessed. Right, like as you are assessing, basically, like you're developing the business case, you kind of like see things, period, whatever the things they are. And ultimately, that's basically how you see the opportunities and see the different directions you can go with. What are the desired outcomes? The desired outcomes are you literally have a goal, and what is something that keeps that goal a success. So the first question I asked myself is like, why am I not there yet, right? And there is where the goal is. It's amazing. Okay, so what would get me there? What would make me realize I am there? What would make me see if I'm there or not? And the desired outcomes describe a state which should result if the need is fulfilled. They should include measurable outcomes that can be utilized to determine the success of a business case or the solution. The desired outcome is literally what we're targeting to do. It's a lot easier for us to like keep asking questions around it and figuring out how to get it. The desired outcome should be revisited at defined milestones and at the completion of the initiative or initiatives to fulfill the business case. I should also be independent or of the recommended solution. Independent. Okay, so they're not different. They use the word independent, which means like a desired outcome should develop on its own, not something that you kind of like forcefully apply or something like that, right? Okay. As solution options are assessed, their ability to achieve the desired outcomes will help determine the recommended solution. If a solution is assessed and it doesn't get us to the desired outcome, it's not a fucking solution, right? But again, like depending on what the desired outcome is and depending on what are we willing to pay, right? It's because like sometimes some solutions work, but their solutions that are unethical or illegal or something like that. So like yeah, the business case identifies what are the alternatives. Assess alternatives. How do we assess alternatives? The business case identifies and assesses various alternative solutions. Alternatives may include, but are not limited to, different technologies, processes, and business models. Alternatives may also include different ways of acquiring a budget, of acquiring these different timing options. They will be affected by constraints such as budget, timing, regulatory. So everything between the office and basically the real world are alternatives, and everything that exists in between. Whether it is hiring people, firing people, whether it is new setups, whether it is new machinery, whether it is fucking new systems, who the fuck knows? Whether it's new software, you don't fucking know. Kind of like you're assessing the alternatives. What are the alternatives? And it makes sense because how I'm looking at it now is like, what's the scope that we're looking at? It's like, I want a solution for this, but do I want it in a year and I spend like $1 million, or I'm okay if I have it in like 2-3 years and I can spend like $200,000 and kind of like work slowly or whatever. What's the scope? And is it feasible? Like, is it feasible within like the current structure of the organization maybe? Or I don't know, we'll get there. The do nothing alternative should be assessed and considered to be recommended solution. Again, like do nothing sometimes, like maybe a solution to a need might break us. So we'll have to manage until we're able, right? Each alternative should be assessed. Let me dive into that. I don't know, can I use my own case study as a reference? Well, I kind of, in my research, I do a lot of like what businesses do, and like I study business cases a lot because I have a startup, and ultimately I want to see what other people did that kind of like worked. But a bigger thing is where others kind of like failed, and here the do nothing alternative. The idea is like sometimes you try to. Okay, one is a do nothing alternative, a valid alternative. In all honesty, one is if it breaks your current setup. If something breaks your current setup, it's too much of a risk. And again, like depending, like for example, if you're gaining momentum, the last thing you want to do is rush it, because sometimes you're like, we need this, but can we afford to kind of like go after it? Can we afford to distract ourselves? All those kinds of things. And reasonable, I guess this is one of the reasonable like structures. I don't know. I'm reflecting a lot, or I want to be reflecting on, like, I'll get back to this after the video anyways. So each alternative should be assessed in terms of scope, feasibility, assumptions, risks and constraints, financial analysis, and value assessment. I think the do nothing alternative, I kind of got stuck on it because most of the time it's more valid than people give it credit to, right? Sometimes the need is not necessarily because something needs to be done, but because we're doing something that shouldn't be done, right? It's counterintuitive, but it really is. It's 70-80% of the time we're kind of like we're not being efficient with our energy and resources. And that inefficiency kind of like reflects in the process, in the business process, in the mental process, and everywhere, like even family, man. Right? Anyways, what's the scope? Scope defines the alternative being proposed. Scope can be defined using organizational boundaries, system boundaries, business processes, business lines, and geographic regions. Scope statements clearly defined. So it's place, department, mentality, product. Scope can go everywhere. The scope of a market alternatives may be similar or have overlap, but also differ based on the alternatives. Feasibility, the organizational and technical feasibility should be assessed for each alternative. Technical doesn't necessarily mean technological. It means, do we have people that are able to do this, right? It includes organizational knowledge, skills, and capacity, as well as technical maturity, experience in proposed technology. What are the rights? Like, no, is it feasible? Can we do it? Or do we have to hire people? And if we want to hire people, is it feasible? Do we have the money? Like, any way you look at it, is like, no, you're kind of checking requirements. Assumptions, risks, and constraints. Assumptions are agreed to facts that may have influence on the initiative. Constraints are limitations that may restrict the possible alternatives. Risks are potential problems that may have, like, after all this fucking book, like, we're at chapter 10, like, these things are still being explained. Look how fucking anal they are. Look at the nerds that created this. I mean, I love it. It's like, wow. Anyways, I am a nerd, dude. Get over it. Constraints are limitations that may restrict the possible alternatives. Risks are potential problems that may have a negative impact on the solution. Agreeing to and documenting these factors facilitates realistic expectations and shared understanding among stakeholders. That makes sense. Financial analysis and value assessment. Naturally, the financial analysis and value assessment includes an estimate of the cost and implement and operate the alternatives, as well as a qualified financial benefit for implementing an alternative. Benefits of a non-financial nature, such as improved staff morale, increased flexibility to respond to change, improved customer satisfaction, or reduce exposure to risk, are also important and add significant value to the organization. Like, sometimes, I think a bigger misconception is how people kind of like look at, like, look at money as value. But the truth is, money is the currency, or is the way we communicate value. So there are many ways we communicate value as well. There's kind of like, like the way they say it here, like, morale. There's also basically flexibility, like strength, connection, bonding, and shit like this. I don't know. And sometimes your need is not necessarily like a financial one. Sometimes your need is just for your team to be more on point, or whatever it is. Number 4, recommended solution. A recommended solution describes the most desirable way to solve the problem or leverage the opportunity. The solution is described in sufficient detail. It's always important for you to, like, puke out as much as detail as you can. And the idea is, like, you can figure out a way for people to just, you can figure out a way to give people a better experience as they read through it. But ultimately, like, it's important for people to, like, it's important for things to be detailed in order for you to, like, for anyone who reads it to not miss anything out. Right? But remember, like, detail them in a story, because if you're just detailing them the same way these people detailed this book, like, not everyone could understand this kind of, like, language. For the decision makers to understand the solution and determine if the recommendation will be implemented. I don't like the term decision maker, but it's fine. The recommended solution may also include some estimates of the cost and the duration to implement the solution. Of course, you have to estimate, basically, like, what are you doing and how. And measurable benefits outcomes will be identified to allow stakeholders to assess. That's very much an American thing, by the way. If you don't show them what they're getting out of it, they would not really understand it. Anyways, usage and considerations. Strengths provides an amygdalation of the complex facts, issues, and analysis required to make decisions regarding change. It's interesting, right? Really, it's a case study. It's a business case. Kind of like, it's the case for the business, as in, like, you're taking a step and allowing this to kind of, like, just explore. You're looking at the business from a different lens. So it allows you to kind of, like, restructure the facts from a different narrative. It provides a detailed financial analysis of cost and benefits. It provides guidance for ongoing decision-making throughout the initiative, 100%. Limitations may be subject to the biases of authors, naturally, because if I'm looking at the world from this lens, I'm going to talk about it from this lens. Frequently not updated once funding for the initiative is secured. Oh, is that it? Like, when you get money, you kind of, like, just do it and forget everything else. And it contains assumptions regarding costs, benefits that may prove invalid upon further investigation. It's interesting, right? Nothing, just like my mind reflecting on something else. But hey, guys, all right, here we go. Like, the limitations of this are basically like us assuming a bit too much because we're making a case for the solution, so we have to. And the other thing is just it's our own laziness and not really like maintaining the business case. All right, our next video is about the business model canvas.